motion to open the public hearing. Can I have a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have in attendance our 4 board members, Luke Farron, Julia McCormick, and Joyce Giffra. We have our environmental consultant, Chick Voorhees, our village planner, Alex Wallach, and of course our legal counsel, Brian Stoller. So we're ready to begin. Should we go over our written decisions, which is first on our agenda? We have case number 3144, Stephen Hickey, 1377 Meadow Lane. Brian, can you give us an update on where we are on this? We wanted to approve the permit, but I think there's a covenant that we also need to approve.
I provided a draft to the applicant. They provided a response, I believe, over the weekend or late Friday, whatever it may have been. I've not reviewed it. Had a number of substantive questions and issues that we will need to address as a board. So it's not ready to be finalized at this point.
Okay, and then moving on, we have case number 3147, Andrew Fleiss, 64 Down East Lane. Where are we on that decision?
Waiting for the board to deliberate.
Do you want to guide us, Chick?
Sure. That is the kayak dock at 64 Down East Lane. That's the site that had the earlier permit where the revegetation was not properly implemented. We put it on hold. The applicant did, in fact, install the revegetation plan according with the ARIS plan that was previously approved. And one of my major questions had to do with the kayak rack, which was partially within wetlands and buffer and would have disturbed additional vegetation. The applicant has heard that comment and they removed the kayak rack. So what we're talking about now is a kayak pier, a catwalk, that goes across the buffer, across the wetlands. It's in an area that's already used for access to the waterway. It includes ramps up, decking or catwalk across the wetlands, a ramp down, and then a platform at the end, which is quite small. I think the max is 4 by 6. The total structure length is 70 feet. It goes across the wetlands. It has through-flow decking that allows for light penetration and growth of vegetation beneath it. It is a small body of water, part of Hetty Creek, and this should just be used as a kayak dock. It is very similar to a ZBA-approved catwalk immediately across the water body to provide access to the waterway. And so we do have plans that I have reviewed. They're also expanding the wetlands revegetation by just a couple of linear feet, but when you multiply it across the width of the property, it's a fairly substantial. I think it's about 600 square feet of replanting. And I don't have any further questions at this time. We did work out language with council with respect to limitations on motorized vessels and use only for small boats, kayaks, paddle boards, etc. That would be part of the recommended permit, and some type of covenant for the buffer area would also be recommended, just so we don't get in this position again, and there's notification of property owners in the future that there is a buffer to protect the wetlands. I have not prepared a permit yet. I do understand there were some submissions made to bring everything up to date as recently as this afternoon, including a construction methodology as well as an updated survey to show the proposed structure, because we want to make sure that everything is installed properly. And so having a survey is very important. So that's ready to be deliberated by the board, further reviewed, and I am ready to take direction as appropriate with respect to moving forward.
Brian, do you want to comment on the variance part of the application? I know Chick's speaking mostly to the wetlands permit issues, but there's also a variance required, isn't there?
In relation to the
The
dock, right?
location of the dock, yes.
There was if I recall, well, as Chick said, there was a removal of the kayak rack, so the only remaining variance, I believe, relates to the location of the proposed dock, which, while you're looking at it from the perspective of different factors than you are for the wetland permit, it's still the same element that you're looking at and considering.
Well, the benefit there is apparently the applicant was saying that if they located it in a conforming location, it doesn't access water that's deep enough, essentially.
Yeah, we did have some discussion on this. I looked at the depths. There are soundings. The water does get shallower as you move. I guess it's south. I get a little disoriented there, and I'm just about to pull up a survey. But as you move farther away from the main part of Hetty Creek, the water gets shallower. And there's very little water at low tide either way. So that's why this is important to be a kayak dock. If you were to move it in conformance with a property line setback, I believe it would disturb vegetation which is not currently disturbed. And it would also be in an area of shallower water. So just from an environmental standpoint, I think there's some merit to the location. Obviously, that has to be weighed against the dimensional variance standards as well.
Okay, but it sounds like there's a benefit to the applicant and actually a benefit to the community, to the neighborhood. And you're not seeing any detriment to the environment. You're seeing actually a benefit to the environment by locating it closer to the property line.
That is my opinion, yes.
Jeff, thoughts?
So can you tell us more about the language prohibiting certain types of vehicles? No motors?
So if it's okay, either Brian or I can read that language. I'll have it up just here in a second. And if you'd like, I can state that exactly.
Check whoever gets there first.
All right, so it is, I'll go ahead. The permit would be subject to submission of a covenant to ensure, or one that would be part of the permit, to ensure that the dock area shown on the site plan shall be used only for its intended purpose for water access and launching of small personal watercraft, including kayaks, paddleboards, and similar watercraft. There shall be no use of motorized vessels and no extended daily, overnight, permanent, or seasonal berthing of boats alongside the kayak structure or otherwise using the kayak structure for access to the premises other than as provided for herein.
Does that go far enough in prohibiting jet skis and small jet boats?
To the extent that they're motorized boats, I believe it would.
Okay.
Do you have any comments?
I don't. We've been hearing this case for a very long time, and I'm appreciative of the fact that the homeowner has made many of the adjustments that we asked of them and have been patient enough to go through this process with all of us. I think we've come to a very positive outcome.
You okay with this?
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I second Julia's comments in terms of all the work that's been done in terms of the wetland buffer and the native vegetation, and I think it's come a long way to a good resolution.
I just have one clarification. My computer is now up and running. It's not 600 square feet. It's plus or minus 463 square feet of revegetation area, but it is several additional feet over the width of the buffer.
Great.
Is the covenant that we're filing, it's going to be a recordable covenant, does it include the preservation of the wetlands buffer?
That's certainly up to the board. I do have language to that effect, and I think it would be valuable, especially in this case, because we did have a situation where it was not implemented previously. So I would recommend including that, and we do have standard language for that purpose.
So how far can we take it now? Because this is
So-
similar to
right.
1377 Meadow Lane, where what we'd like is a signed covenant to be recorded, not recorded until we issue the permit, but then the board will know that the wetlands buffer will be
So,
something that notifies.
right, so rather than have it be recorded in advance, we can convey it to the applicant's representative, have them review it. If they are okay with it, then as part of your decision, it sounds as if the decision will be in favor. Part of the decision, we can incorporate that language, and everything will be resolved, and it should be handled by the applicant after that point. I think that should give the board confidence that it will happen.
Right, the handling is just the filing. So
Correct.
we'll, okay, so,
As a condition of what we'll do is based on the information I'm hearing from the board, I will draft a decision on the dock portion with the conditions that Chick incorporates for the wetland permit. Those will include as conditions the covenant, that the covenant be recorded, and only after the covenant be recorded can a building permit issue. So that's a predicate to any next steps and has to be done before anything else can happen.
okay, so we know that the board's in favor of granting the wetlands permit and the dock permits or whatever approvals they need from us, but we're not necessarily ready to vote on it. It's exactly analogous to the 1371 Meadow Lane. They know that we want to move forward here, but we need documentation.
All right, so what you're doing is you're directing Chick and me to draft appropriate language in terms of the decision that will, the board can vote on, hopefully if we are in a position that the applicant's representative is in agreement on the covenant, the board can vote on next month.
Sure.
Or next meeting.
Whenever it's ready.
If it's
Next
ready by
meeting.
the next meeting.
And the next meeting being April 25th. So if we can have the paperwork done by April 25th, then we can move it forward at that time.
And I can draft the permit, the wetlands permit, circulate that as a draft for your consideration. And that will include the interscience plans, which we have detailed plans, profiles, and everything else. The construction methodology and the updated survey, which I'll review because they were just submitted today. But I can have all that as part of the permit.
Great, thanks. So moving on, we're going to look at case number 3171, Pericles Navab, 240 Little Plains Road. We need to deliberate on this.
Well, it was, I believe,
Yeah.
I believe you closed this
we
the
did,
last case
okay.
previously, and you
Okay.
also closed 3171 previously.
Okay.
And after closing and during your discussion on the application, it was evident that the board was in favor of the application, so I provided a draft decision to the board. The board can vote on that tonight.
Do you have comments?
I do not.
Are you in favor?
I am.
I'm in favor.
I'm in favor.
Yeah, it's a minor variance request, but there's a benefit. It's basically just providing a covered portico for a house that frankly has other covered porticos nearby. So we can vote.
It would be, yes, you need a
favor?
motion to approve the application in accordance with the decision that was drafted and the all board members have reviewed.
Okay, so I'll motion in the case of 3171, 240 Little Plains Road to approve the decision as written by our legal counsel. Can I have a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So that's unanimous.
Brian, do we have a copy of that decision?
I'll send it to you right now.
Okay.
Okay, let's look at all the adjournments. The first adjournment is case number 3151, Alexander D. Pisa, 213 Windmill Lane. Why are we adjourning this, Alex? Or do you want to speak to why we're adjourning it?
You remember I went back to the Chris Talbot because I thought that the prior interpretation of the building inspector was incorrect. There are many instances in the village where these right-of-ways are not treated as roads. Probably the most prominent is Fairleigh. You can go down to Fairleigh, which is right off the end of South Main Street. There are numerous homes down there. They take the setback from the property line, not the road, and they traditionally have. So that's probably 10 homes there. And then, interestingly enough, what's his name? I think of his grandfather was the auto So the Odo Paremba, the architect,
Jason.
yeah, Jason, that office there, which is on this passageway formed by the right-of-ways, that's never been viewed as a corner lot. So I gave all this stuff to Chris Talbot. I know he reached out to the prior building inspector, John Foster, and he's trying to see what to develop what the interpretation has been. I asked him when he thought he could have it, because at the last meeting we said, it certainly changes the amount of relief that's necessary. So he told me, quote, he's a busy guy, he says, I will get to it. I know both you and the Zoning Board of Appeals are looking for it. So there's no sense going forward without the interpretation, because it dramatically affects the relief that's necessary. So I would ask, you can put it over to I asked for the 25th, but if you feel more comfortable putting it over further, that's okay with me. I'm sure my client wouldn't be thrilled about it because he wants to move along, but I also have to understand there's some friction involved in the stuff in terms of getting it right one way or the other. But it's your call.
Yeah, I think if we adjourn it to May 14th,
Okay.
we know we're gonna have something by then.
Okay. I'll push gently. No, I'm very good at knowing when to push it and when to beg, so I'll try to do both. May 14th, then.
So
Thank you.
I'll motion that we accept the applicant's request to adjourn case number 3151, 213 Windmill Lane until our meeting on May 14th. Can I have a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
That's
Alex,
unanimous.
do you think you can encourage Chris to take a look at it?
I can only ask.
Okay.
Next adjournment we have, the next adjournment request is case number 3155, 1750 Meadow Lane. Do you want to speak to that, because you were...
Yeah, thanks. I had asked originally for the 25th, but in looking at some correspondence from the Woods Hole group, I don't think they're going to have me a report until the middle of June, because there's a lot of work involved, and we have a 20-page or so report from Chick to respond to. So rather than coming back on the 25th and asking you for more time, I thought the second meeting in June makes the most sense, because I'm just not going to get to it to then, and I'd like to have both. I want to get that report to you, and they're telling me, the 10th to the 15th of June, and I obviously want to get it to you guys and Chick, so that you can have time to look at it as well. So it just seems to make more sense the second meeting in June. If you could indulge us for that, that would be great.
Is that okay with the board? We would be adjourning to June 27th, but I believe requiring a renotice and re-advertising.
That's fine.
Does that work
We can
for
do
you,
that.
Brian?
It would have, well, you should do that, and also on the 25th, make an announcement that, because this had been adjourned to the 25th, so make an announcement that is being adjourned to the 27th of June, and also require that same renotice.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the applicant's request to adjourn case number 3155, 1750 Waterview LLC, 1750 Meadow Lane, until June 27th, subject to a renotice and re-advertising. Can I have a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Just in terms of housekeeping, Alex, I'll send out the re-noticing. You'll take care of I'll send out the remailing. You'll take care of the noticing?
Yes, we'll do the publication, and I think we'll send that to your office because that'll become the mailing.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sure.
I have 3162, but I see you have one before that, so I'll just sit down and wait for that.
So the next request for adjournment is case number 3156, Eiffel Residence. The request is in writing, and I believe, Alex, the request was for an adjournment until...
I have June 11th. Let me make sure that that's correct.
That's what the agenda shows.
That may have been what their letter reflected, although, Yeah, they asked for June 11th, but I don't believe the schedule was set that far in advance, so they may have been speculating a little bit.
Is that the correct date though for June?
11th.
I don't know that that's been set. I know we have it at the end of the agenda. But there would be a meeting on June 11th if the board met on the second Tuesday in June.
Okay, so yeah, we're gonna approve that. We'll do it at the end, but we can adjourn this to June 11th, but it'll still be subject to renotice and re-advertising. Is that correct?
May I ask the board to not request a re-advertisement for this?
Yes.
This is an application that's been going on for a year. About 4 months ago, we closed the application without notifying us or neighbors. It was reopened.
The renotice is for the public, so we're gonna require that you renotice and re-advertise so that anybody who might be interested in this, you know, is kept
We've been
apprised.
here for close to a year. Not one neighbor or member of public has attended
Yeah.
on this application.
Chair, procedurally, the board reopened this. So once you reopen, renotice and re-advertising is required. So if it wasn't done for today or the 25th, then whatever the date is that we have it scheduled, it will have to be renoticed and re-advertised in any event.
I actually have a question about this particular case because I was in attendance over Zoom at last week's ARB meeting where I felt it was very clear that this application was being withdrawn from the Zoning Board of Appeals. There were several instances where you were asked by the members of the Architectural Review Board about this application, and repeatedly I understood you to say that it was coming off our agenda.
Yes, that was how I was informed by the client that they intend to do that. However, following information that I got is that they're pursuing continuing to the ZBA.
Okay, but I would think that anyone who might watch either meeting would have the misimpression that it is no longer in front of the zoning board based on the comments that were made that night. And I would very much think that renoticing and re-advertising would only be fair to the public, because that's why we do all of this, is to make sure that both as a board we have an opportunity to look at the code, but also to ensure that the neighbors have the opportunity. And I do appreciate your perspective.
That also was something that was initiated by the board, opening the application without noticing us or the public. However, I understand.
Okay, can you just state your name for the record?
Are we prepared to vote on this now?
We could be prepared. I mean, it's one of our options, which is no, we're not accepting an adjournment. Instead, we're ready to vote on it. It's something that's open for discussion.
But Alex, has this been scheduled for a hearing for tonight? Or did the board just reopen without a date? We reopened without a specific date, so I don't know.
Correct.
If it hasn't been noticed, there's nothing to discuss tonight.
Correct, and
Other
it hasn't been closed since it was reopened by the board.
Well, it was reopened, but that
Yes.
requires a new notice. Has a new notice issued?
No.
Okay, so there's no action the board can take on the substance of the application. Instead, you just need to determine a date to put this onto, and it does require procedurally renotice and re-advertisement.
If it hasn't been renoticed and re-advertised, do we have any jurisdiction to say anything about it?
You're going to you can schedule a date. It's not an adjournment. It's scheduling a date.
There's a few areas of confusion here.
All right,
Doesn't
so-
the applicant have to renotice and re-advertise? We're not doing it.
Absolutely,
Okay,
yes.
But they haven't done so as of now.
The applicant has to renotice, but he would have to the advertisement is done by the village, based on the date that it's put on for. The village can put that date on through staff, or the board can determine a date that it should go on. Either way. But this is different than an adjournment request. This is a case that the board heard, the board closed, realized that there was additional information after the board closed it. The board then moved to reopen. That procedure then starts the process over for the application with respect to a hearing. So the hearing restarts unless the applicant has no interest in moving forward, as Ms. McCormick had mentioned as a possibility, and now we're learning that's not the case. They are going to be moving forward. So for them to move forward, it has to go back on for a hearing, which is scheduled either by staff or by the board.
And in order for them to do the notice, the village would have to publish it in the newspaper, so we would need the board to schedule a hearing date.
Okay, but I thought usually you schedule the first hearing date based upon, just trying to get a sense
We
of
did,
what the
when
sequence is.
when an applicant originally applies, the application is reviewed, and when it's complete, they're given an initial hearing date. But this was closed and reopened at the direction of the board, so we would need the board to determine a new hearing date that we could advertise the case for.
Okay, I mean, it sounds like, just to cut through the fine details, which may or may not be worth deliberating, if the board schedules the public hearing for June 11th, I think the board would be fine with that. And I think what you're saying, Brian, is the question of renotice and re-advertising is required no matter what.
Correct.
Okay. So,
Are you going to be showing us anything new or
Yes,
any changes?
we're working on a
Okay.
report to.
Okay, then can I make a request?
Sure.
On the elevations, when you show shade and shadow, can you make the shadow transparent? Because on the elevations and the copies that we're given in the Dropbox, it just looks like large black.
And the full size, it's correct, but I'll
Okay, yeah,
correct
just
that on the
work
11
on the
by 17.
transparency there. Thank you.
So I would like to get, maybe from you, Alex, a little more clarity on the process that we're following, because what the Architecture Review Board was concerned about was they don't want to hear a case if it's an ongoing matter in front of another board. They wouldn't have heard 2020 Meadow Lane.
Actually, Mark, excuse me, they do not have an authority
I'm just,
to,
no, excuse me.
to
Excuse
stop
me.
an applicant that is.
Okay, excuse
There
me.
were
Let me
two.
just have the conversation with, or finish my sentences. Okay. So they didn't want to, and maybe this is in your jurisdiction. Okay. They wouldn't have wanted to hear a case unless they knew, okay, that the ZBA's process had concluded. So they asked the applicant, and on behalf of the applicant's representative told them, we are withdrawing our case in front of the zoning board.
So we're considering returning our case.
What I was told was, we're withdrawing it, okay? We don't have any variance requests in front of the zoning board. And now we're coming
Mark,
back and we're being told we
misquoted
do.
you here.
Well, then
It
what was
came
the
up
quote?
3 separate times.
Yes, I
Mrs.
said
Demi,
that,
and it was,
I said, let me please clarify. So the client is considering withdrawing the application. At the time, the application was still, and it still is, in front of the ZBA. So we had not withdrawn the application, and that application is a separate application from what the ARB heard. The ARB heard an application that was an as-of-right application. It was an application that extended itself to this board or what this, it was a completely different application.
Well,
It was an
that's why we try to finish one process before we start another, because now you have 2 different applications going on, and it becomes confusing. And when you say it was an as-of-right application, didn't it also require a wetlands permit? Whatever
No, it
you
did
put,
not.
so what you put in front of the ARB didn't require a wetlands
It did
permit.
not.
There was no changes to the
No
north
changes.
facade, right? Yeah.
No changes to the facade.
No, it's not just
That-
that. It's
that-
whether or not the site plan showed a movement of the driveway, whether there
Right.
was a location for the septic
None of the
system.
items, the building department actually made a verification that the as-of-right application that we submitted to ARB does not require a wetland permit because it did not include any of the items that is under the jurisdiction of the ZBA.
Can you fill us in?
The building department reviewed an alternative application that didn't require relief from this board, and they were able to proceed to the Architecture Review Board with that option, which is a separate application than this. It's a different proposal.
Okay, so now the applicant has approved by the Architecture Review Board one plan, and they want to come to the zoning board with a different plan.
so honestly, why would we, any of the land use boards, entertain multiple submissions? I mean, this is meant to be a serious, single piece of property that is being considered from different angles. If we start to accept applications that are different, one board to the next, it's only going to mushroom. It's a terrible, terrible precedent to put in front of these boards. it will make a volume of work that will be unimaginable for us to manage. That feels like a sleight of hand. And
No, Julia,
Mr. Sammy, if you go and look at the tape again carefully, and you were very careful with your words, but you were asked on 3 separate occasions if this was in front of the ZBA, and it was no longer going to be. It was not a consideration on the 3rd round. I have watched the tape because I was very
Julia,
surprised to find you here.
You're assuming that this same application that's in front of the ZBA was presented to the ARB. That's not the
I
case.
was aware that they were different, but part of the process was the ARB was trying to ensure that 2 different plans would not be presented to 2 different boards, that this was meant to be a streamlined process from one board to the next. We work hand in glove. We don't want to be looking at multiple applications with multiple versions.
You're not looking at multiple applications. You're looking at one application. Our application in front of the ZBA is an application request for variance. The application that the ARB looked at was an application that was an as of right, and it not needed variance.
You're parsing words.
Potentially, it's a double application for the ARB because let's just say they approved what you showed them,
Correct.
and then let's say we approved what you've shown us.
Then I would go
You
back
would
to
have
the
to go
ARB
back to the
for
ARB,
the
and
approval.
they may feel as if you had wasted their time on the first go around, right?
I mean, talking about waste of time.
Well, no, more importantly, just
for
the record, you've shown that there is, on behalf of your applicant, a way for you to accomplish your benefits as of right.
That's not
Okay,
correct.
so now you're going to come back to us and
That's
say,
not correct.
although we can do a process,
We
we can do
eliminate-
a project that's as of right, we still want to ask you for this.
That's not correct, Mark, because all the items that do require variance were removed from that, and our client still is seeking to implement some of those things. So we basically reduced our project dramatically in order to go in front of the ARB. We still are seeking to respond to the environmental report to satisfy the ZBA in order to get the variances for what we originally came to this board. In the absence of those variances, this application is not, it's 2 independent, different applications from one another.
Okay, no, so all we're going to do here is we're going to motion to accept the applicant's request to adjourn case number 3156, Eiffel Residence LLC, 2020 Meadow Lane to June 11th.
So this is to schedule a public hearing for June 11th?
Let's put it that way. Okay, so we're motioning to schedule a public hearing for June 11th?
Correct.
Okay, can I have a second? Do you not want a second?
I just want to give it a minute. I want to think about it for a minute. I'm very uncomfortable with how this system is trying to be gamed. And I am very uncomfortable with the parsing of words. We're here genuinely trying to do the best by our village. We're all providing service. This is not our jobs. And I do not like how this is going. You have the right to have the adjournment. You've come, you've made your case, and I will second it. But I am very concerned about how this process has gone.
Julia, we did consult the building department regarding this process. We were informed and advised by the building department that it is absolutely our right to pursue 2 different applications in front of 2 different boards, seeking 2 different things from each one of the boards, and one does not stop the other from pursuing and seeking what we're seeking here. This was not something that we basically concocted or tried to pull as a fast one in front of either one of these boards.
What's the strategy there, though? What does it get you? Especially if you get 2 approvals.
The strategy, basically, there's no strategy here. Basically, what we're trying to do here is to achieve a minimal in light of basically all the zoning changes that are coming to this village and so forth. So we don't know. We've been in front of this board for 14 months now, and this application
With
was
very
closed.
significant requests.
Yes, and this application, after many back and forths and satisfying all your concerns, in
Why
our
did you
in
say
our,
that?
in our in our in our opinion, as far as responding to
Yes,
the
but in the
environmental
board's
and so
opinion,
forth.
you didn't satisfy all of our
Well,
requests.
you did close,
and-
Mark. You did close the application
Yes.
after all the information was going back and forth
Right?
for the board. There was a reason why application gets closed because everything is satisfied.
No,
Then
I don't think you
4 months
understand our
later,
process.
4 months later, we get this application opened up for a pending report, not even an actual report, but a pending report.
Did you read the report?
Yes, of course I did.
Okay.
read the
Did you
report.
find it comprehensive and intelligent and
It's a 40-page report, Mark.
Yes.
It's not
Okay.
something that
Did you
that's
find-
exactly why
okay. Did you
we
find
need
that
a-
that report was actually useful
useful for what?
for
purpose?
everybody to understand the nature of this project?
Well, this wasn't a first report from Chick's office.
Right.
We've been going back and forth addressing Chick's concerns and board's concerns. So to some extent, this report was from the left field in the sense that it ignored all that had transpired in the previous.
I think it did the
hearings.
opposite of ignoring it. I think that you had every opportunity to present, okay, your plans, okay, and then we were given an opportunity to step back and reflect on them. And Chick had the opportunity at that point, once they understood what your plan was, okay, to make comments on it. That you were given plenty of time to explain your plan,
Correct.
to provide diagrams, and then at the end of the process, Chick was given the opportunity, Mr.
So
Voorhees
then
was
my
given the
question would be-
opportunity to reflect on it and write what I thought was a comprehensive, intelligent,
Then-
memoranda, which you should take into consideration, and I think the
Absolutely.
board has to take into
Then
consideration.
why was the
So this
application
indication-
closed?
Why was it? I don't understand what your question is. Do you find that it shouldn't have been a part of our record that Mr. Voorhees provided this comprehensive memorandum with respect to your application?
We did not expect a report from Mr.
I don't.
Voorhees
But once you
after
read
the
it, don't you
application is
find it
closed.
important?
That's not my question, Mark.
That's my
is that
question. We
basically-
find it important.
Yes. However, the application was closed after hearing back and forth from us and the consultant. When an application is closed, basically from your own expectations, that you've satisfied all the information.
I don't
that
know
needs to
where
be
you're getting
gathered.
that from.
Okay.
I mean, you think when somebody closes a matter that you're receiving an approval, and I really don't want you to have that impression.
I didn't say an approval. It could be an approval, it could be a denial, but when an application
Exactly.
is closed, that means that no additional information is to be added to that application.
Okay, so we're, anyway, you guys weigh in.
I have a question for Alex. Alex, my understanding was that night at the ARB that the ARB was told the decision that they were withdrawing from the ZBA. I also understood at the prior meeting that the Architectural Review Board had said they would adjourn their case of 2020 Meadow Lane until the ZBA had a decision. So when Mr. Sami came in front of the ARB, because he's stating tonight that this went to the building department, and it was the building department that brought them to in front of both boards. But the ARB had specifically stated that they had adjourned until there was a ZBA decision. So when you were at that meeting and stated that it had been withdrawn, they moved forward. It was a condition
I
of
did
their
not say it
moving
was
forward.
withdrawn. I said that the applicant is considering withdrawal, which was the case at the time. And that
It would not have
application that
hurt
was presented to the ARB was not the application that's in front of this board. It was a different application. It's a different architectural plan. It need not have any variance associated with it. Hence, the ARB did not need any approval from the ZBA in order to hear that application.
Alex, do you have anything more to add to it based on the comments that have been made here tonight?
Well,
I really want to have a clear understanding of what this process was.
Right, and I want to make sure that I understand your question. So there
The
was
question is, why was it put in front of the ARB, who have now closed their case and have rendered a decision
Mhm.
based on an application that actually the applicant is not considering, and because they're still here. I just don't understand it and how it happened. And as I have said, and Mr. Sammy is disagreeing with me about his statements at the ARB meeting last week, but my understanding was clearly that this was no longer in front of the ZBA. But of course it is and will be through June.
So there was an application made for a different proposal for the property that did
And
not.
did the building department suggest that it go forward to the ARB while there was still a case in front of the zoning board?
Well, the
I
building,
just want to understand
the
it.
building department doesn't suggest people make applications, and we don't choose what applications we receive. The application was reviewed for code compliance, and when it was determined that it could meet code, it was scheduled for an ARB hearing, which is our procedure.
Even although there was a case in front of the zoning board and the ARB had stated they would not proceed until there had been a decision from zoning. And no decision had been reached by zoning and still has not.
And so there's two different applications because they had a different proposal. On the proposal that required zoning board relief, they typically want the zoning board to act first in most but not all cases. On this proposal, there was no requirement that the zoning board act because the building inspector determined that there was no relief needed, so that they were able to move forward on this. So they reviewed the application based on their criteria.
I'm sorry for all this is like entirely confusing to me, and I feel like we're as a zoning board, it's compromising our integrity because I feel like this process is there's an end run. Is the proposal that's before the ARB, how does that differ from the proposal before us? Because we've invested, as you said, and as you have, and I understand your frustration to a certain extent, 14 months in this process before our board. And is all this work going to be rewound or discarded because then what's pending over at the ARB? Is that
So-
going to then?
So if you look at our application
Well,
here,
it was approved.
Joyce, items number 1 through 8 are items that are in front of this board for a variance, for the Dolliver line and wetland permit
Yeah.
and so forth. All these items have been removed from the application that went in front of the ARB.
No, actually, one through 3 are wetlands permit.
Yes, and the rest of them have to do with the Dolliver line encroachments.
No,
All
I-
those items were removed.
Yeah,
from
no,
the application.
well, you're saying all of the items were removed, and my question previously was whether you required a wetlands permit. So it seems like this request for a pervious driveway to be located 53.9 feet from wetlands, that's also not a necessary part of your application because it wasn't part of the application before the ARB. And this proposed sanitary system, 146 feet from wetlands, that's not a part of your ARB application either.
No, it's not.
Okay, so, 4 through 8 are
So-
variance requests, 1 through 3 are wetlands permit
So
requests.
this is the aspect of our application in front of the ZBA, that we are not increasing the size of our building beyond the existing footprint. We're not increasing the capacity and the number of the bedrooms of a building that is existing right now. All we're doing is reconfiguring the
And
space within
we
that.
can discuss that on June
so-
11th.
so-
I'm
so-
inclined
so
to say,
when-
fine, we can rehear it. We're just trying to clarify the difference between what the ARB approved and what you're asking the ZBA to approve.
So when-
And I just wanted on the record that you don't need any wetlands permit
No.
relief. You don't need any variance relief for the project that you put before the ARB. Okay. Do you have thoughts?
I mean, if there's a mechanism to be able to close this right now, that's what I would like to do and vote on it.
I think we have to hear their response to the environmental consultant's report. That was, okay, let me try again. So a motion to,
Well, there's a pending motion which was
okay, thank you.
seconded.
That we,
I reluctantly said that I
Yes,
would
that's right.
second it, and I shall second it.
so let's vote on it. I'm in favor of hearing this on June 11th. Anybody else?
I mean, I will second or whatever, agree with the emotion reluctantly. I feel like we're setting a dangerous precedent by bifurcating an application is what my concern is. But it's fine to adjourn it to June 11th.
Just to note, the bifurcation is something that, taking a quick look at the code, the village code, is not precluded. It's not precluded. Somebody
Okay,
did-
well, yeah, but it creates a lot of
Yes, absolutely, those points.
chaos in the process.
But it may be something, if you want to see that change so that this does not happen again, you can have a discussion with the Board of Trustees about modifying the code with respect to land use applications that are pending before multiple boards.
You better believe it.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation.
We need your vote.
I second it and I say aye.
It's a nay for me.
Okay, we'll see you on June 11th. The next request for adjournment is case number 3162, Sydney Guevara. I hope I pronounced it correctly.
I think don't tell anyone, but I call this the Che file in my office.
146 Halsey Street. So we're going to adjourn, but could you explain what we're waiting for?
I think a little bit more of an adjournment would be appropriate. Thanks for your patience on this. We've slowly been moving through this. The first variance, number 3, was changed from 25 feet to increase it to 30 feet. So that was based upon some board comments. And then a second variance was removed by a corrected denial letter. So we're working our way through this. At the last meeting, Luke suggested that there might be an alternative that that he may consider. Maybe, I don't know whether or not some of the other board members would consider it, but that he may consider it. It would require renoticing, because it would require relief to the north boundary line, where the current application doesn't require relief to the north boundary line. But we have set our design team at looking at that, and I think we were a little bit enthusiastic about when we received that back. So, and it has to be renoticed, as your counsel stated properly the last time. So maybe I'll put some pressure on our team. Maybe, since I'm going to be here on the May 14th, that will give us more time to make sure that we have it back to the board and to Alex, so that it can be renoticed and remailed by our office.
So the motion is to
Would be adjourn.
renotice. Is it adjourning it, or because we're renoticing and re-advertising this?
In the event that I would recommend that you adjourn to a specific date in the event that the revised plans don't make it here and the applicant decides to move forward with the existing application.
But I think they're deciding not to.
Yes, and if they do, then it's, you by adjourning it, all you've done is allowed this to stay open without effectively withdrawing it or marking it off calendar. Adjourn the pending application, and if in fact the new application with new variances or an amended application with new variances comes before you, that will have to be renoticed for that date.
No, understand something, and we went through this before. We're not withdrawing the application for the pool to be at 30 feet from the front yard. The thought was, as is often the case, to give the board some alternatives. That was discussed at the last meeting. So we're not withdrawing the application. Well, let me start by saying, regardless, we're going to need to repost and re-advertise. There's no question about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to do that. I'm just trying to make sure there's enough time. Certainly the 25th doesn't make sense. So maybe the 14th. But the thought was to have an alternative design that moved the pool further out of the front yard. And we'll see what the neighbor says. We'll see what the board members say. But that was the whole concept. And there was a question about it, and your counsel last time said it's an acceptable process. So that's all we're asking to do. Adjourn the matter to the 14th. If you want to push it over a little further, that's fine, but the 14th should be enough. I'll put pressure on my team to make sure that the surveys are
we don't have a
revised.
problem making it June 11th. That's up to you. I mean, it would be an adjournment subject to a renotice and
I
re-advertise.
don't think I'm here on, I think I'm here on the 27th of June. I mean, what's your pleasure? I'm asking you for an adjournment. The 14th or the
The 11th is better for us because then at least we know we're
Okay,
hearing it. We
sure,
don't have to,
fine.
and
June
then we can
11th.
prepare.
June
Yes.
11th. That's fine. That's what we'll
Okay,
do.
so I'll motion to accept the applicant's request to adjourn case number 3162, 146 Halsey Street, until June 11th, our scheduled public hearing, or what will be scheduled,
Yes.
subject to renotice and re-advertising.
Fine with us.
And John, if you have an alternative proposal, we'll get you an amended denial letter so that we make sure it gets advertised accordingly.
That would be great. I mean, we're gonna move the pool to 10 feet from the northerly property line, so just
Okay,
so
so-
you can start thinking about that.
Yep,
Okay,
we'll look for those updated plans.
thanks.
Okay, can I have a second?
Second.
And then all in favor?
Aye.
I
Aye. Thank you.
Okay, have a great night.
Thank you. I think that's all our adjournment requests, and we can move forward to, let me know if I'm out of order here. Let's see.
No, you're fine.
you're fine.
We have case number 3166, Stephen Klinsky, 325 Cooper's Neck Lane.
Yep.
This is your new architect. Last time in the meeting,
You're gonna have to grab one of those mics.
here, this one. CEO Liu architect for this project. In the last meeting, because I said I don't have the comments from our environmental consultant, I think Alex immediately emailed me the response from Chip, and I read it and I consulted with my landscape consultant, and I talked to the homeowner, and we redesigned this, and I did talk to Chick about if this is acceptable, and so we don't come here waste everybody's time. So what we're proposing is we're keeping the buffer we proposed last time, which is about 200 square foot, and we're adding another 400 square foot on the side. And that was actually Luke's suggestion that most of the runoff is actually from the swimming pool, and that's probably the best place to put it. And Chick asked for us not just do grasses and then do shrubs, so we put in the grosser bush and marsh arbor, and it's about 400 square foot. And the two footprints that we created, 8,800 square foot each, then add together 176 square foot, and we're compensating the buffer about 600 square foot. So it's like more than 3 times than what we're taking, and then what we're taking is actually also not on the wetland, it's on the loam area. So we're trying.
Chick, do you
So I
want
always
to,
like to check.
you want to speak to this? Did we remove the tennis court?
Yes, there was reference to some records in the building department files that has been removed from this plan. Everything that Lucy said is accurate. As a matter of fact, we did discuss it at the last meeting, and this board authorized me to speak to the applicant in the interim. So the plan is there. It's several minor additions. I did some math as well, and the additions total 621 square feet, but 176 square feet are in areas that are not part of the existing house. All the rest are within the existing footprint of porches. So the offset of 600 square feet of wetland restoration is quite good. It does include multiple species, and that revegetation plan is part of the record, just as Lucy has indicated. So I have no further questions at this time, and I'm ready to proceed based on your direction.
Luke, do you want to start with comments?
I think this is a sensible application. I'd be happy to approve it.
I feel I'm actually in the same position at this time.
I think the new proposal looks fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, yes, I'm also in favor of it, so we can move forward with
Before you do, just a couple of, just one question. I just want to make sure that, because there are multiple plans here, the plan that we are all talking about, is that the one last revised 3/22/24?
3/22/24.
All right, thank you. And then just.
That's
make sure no-
consistent with my records as well.
Okay, make sure no one else is here.
But I'm looking at.
Is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak on this application? 325 Cooper's Neck Lane? Okay, so we can close it for decision. I'll motion to close for decision, case number 3166, 325 Cooper's Neck Lane, Stephen Klinsky. Can I have a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Next up, we have case number 3169, 153 Bishop's Lane.
Good evening, Anthony Vermendorf, 6
So that microphone that's on the table, he's asking you to bring back. And Lucy, hold on, I think she might have left her phone, unless that's your phone, sir.
No.
Your phone, Lucy.
All right, good evening, Anthony Vermendorf, 68 Union Street. I am the architect representing the homeowners Adrian and Thomas Enderman. The project is at 153 Bishop's Lane. The property size is 26,330 square feet. I'm going to note that the property is oversized for its zone, which is R20. There is an existing primary structure on the property, which is about 4,000 square feet, and there is a existing accessory structure on the property, which is 520 square feet, and it is used as a pool house. The proposed project is to add a 16-foot by 16-foot addition to the pool house, which is to serve as a single-car garage. We will be bumping into the footprint of the pool house by 5 feet, so the total length of the garage space itself will be 21 feet to make it usable. But the actual addition is only 16 feet. I want to be very clear that we are not proposing any change, any alterations, GFA related or otherwise, with the primary structure. The garage is just strictly to provide a covered parking spot for the homeowner's car during the winter time. They currently park it. If you've been by the property, you've probably seen their car there parked in the little parking area in the front. This will just get it away from the street and under protection for the winter. We've elected not to extend the driveway all the way to the proposed garage, only because this will be so rarely used that there's really no rarely driven back and forth on, I should say, that there's really no need to extend the paving. Just the anticipation is that the car and other outdoor storage will be there for the winter months. That's really all I can say in brief about the project. It's as I said, just a 16-foot by 16-foot addition to the existing structure. Had the property been in a different zone, with normally having more than 20,000 square feet, I should say that we would be permitted to do an 800 square foot accessory structure on that property. But because we're an oversized property in an R20 zone, that limits us to 520 square feet.
Can you put the plans on camera? My initial question is, if you're only adding garage space, why are you increasing GFA? Because you're not.
It's complicated. Let's put it to you that way. I think this is one of those situations that the zoning code doesn't really anticipate. My understanding is that as of right, we could actually build like a 520 square foot separate garage on the property without needing a variance. But in this instance, it just seems it's just vastly more cost effective and more aesthetically pleasing to just simply add a little bit onto an existing structure that's being underused. So that's why this is coming up. But I think my understanding is that because I think the zoning has changed since the house was originally constructed, the adding onto the pool house now counts for that 520 square foot GFA, but adding on to it makes that building bigger than 520 square feet. I don't know if I'm explaining that to you well.
Anthony, can you flip the plans around so they face the board?
Sure.
You have to be, I think you're on
Actually,
camera.
Oh,
yeah.
he's got it.
There we go.
So what's your current GFA?
Of that structure, it's 520 square feet.
No, what's your current GFA for?
4,543.
Yeah.
Alex, can I
Yeah.
ask
Yeah.
you a question? So a lot of times when you're doing these calculations, you're going off of the square footage of the property, right? So his allowable GFA is based upon the square footage of his lot. Is it accurate that then the zone potentially overrides what could be allowed?
It depends on the zoning requirement. There's some zoning requirements like gross floor area and lot coverage that are based on lot coverage.
Right.
There's some that are set by zoning district. For example, like a front yard setback has a
Right.
minimum that's set by zoning district.
Right.
Others are set by lot sizes. If you fall within a certain category of lot size, that might determine the requirement. So every requirement is written a little bit differently.
Okay. So
Yeah, in fact, my initial reading of the code was that we were fine, because we were over 20,000 square feet and we could
Right.
do an 800 square foot. Tin, who was the building inspector at the time, then pointed out to me, well, no, because you're in R20, which is technically under 20,000 square feet, so you have to be held to that 520 square foot limit, even though the property is bigger than 20,000 square feet. So it was a little bit of a weird kind of situation that we were in.
So in the same way that if you're an undersized lot in a zone, you get 4/10 relief, say on setbacks, it doesn't work vice versa for a oversized lot?
So for the requirement for accessory buildings,
Yes.
for example, it's done by zoning district.
Okay.
So R20 and below, the max is 520.
Okay.
It would be R40 and above, the max would be, I believe it's 800.
Okay.
So this particular requirement is not set by lot size. So if you have
I
a
understand.
large lot in a small zoning district, the accessory building size is set by the zoning district. That's the controlling factor.
So you fully agree with the building department interpretation here?
The way that the denial letter is written, yeah, I believe that's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah. So it's a pretty substantial request then.
Well, I mean, it's a 16. It sounds. I think it probably sounds more substantial because of the way that the zoning is on paper than it is in reality. It's a 16-foot addition. The other thing too is that the alternative to do this is to build a 525 square foot detached garage, which we can do as of right, from my understanding. But we don't want to do that because that's adding a third structure onto the property. We'd like to keep this as two structures, and it's just more efficient to add on to that existing structure.
Am I reading this correctly that at 45, 43 square feet, you're already non-conforming?
I think
That's
that
correct.
Yeah, I think that the property is already non-conforming. I think the zoning has changed since the house was originally built.
I still have my original question. Why is your GFA increasing if you're adding a garage?
I can answer that. So there's an exemption in the code for garages. Does not apply in this situation because it's a garage/pool house. The building department consistently only allows that garage exemption for a freestanding garage that has no other purposes, essentially four walls and a roof. So as soon as it's combined with a garage pool house or a garage art studio, it no longer is eligible for that garage exemption.
To avoid a pool house becoming a accessory dwelling.
Well,
Down
it's
the
more of the idea behind the exemption is to allow people to have garages, and the idea is that they didn't want those garages becoming pool houses and slowly becoming converted. So the building department is strict in the way that it interprets that section of the code, so that it's for garages only.
Got it.
You're exactly right, and that's what I'm trying to get confirmation on. That what they're referring to as a pool house
Mhm.
wasn't at any time submitted to the building department as a garage, and then later converted to a pool house.
I don't believe that's the case
No,
here.
I can answer that too, because in fact, when we did this project, originally submitted this project, which was about, maybe about 10 years ago, what we proposed was always just going to be purely a pool house, and that's how it was built. What has happened, the property has changed ownerships since then. The current, let me go backtrack. When we were doing the design process for the original application, we actually had a separate garage as part of that application, but everyone kind of felt that having three structures on the property looked kind of like a waste of space. So we ended up just doing the pool house, not the garage. And at that time, it was built according to the code at the time. Everything was correct. The new owners have purchased the property. They're finding that the pool house is actually just too big for their needs. So that was the idea of taking this sort of 5 feet out of that existing pool house, actually reducing the amount of that space that is pool house, and adding 16 feet on it to create this single bay of a single car bay out of the same structure. So we are technically reducing even though it doesn't really matter from the purpose of how the code interprets it, we are actually technically reducing the habitable space of the pool house by that 5 feet.
Do you know how it became non-conforming?
I believe there was a change in the code and how GFA was calculated. I can't remember if the total was slightly lowered or they changed the way that pool houses were calculated. I'd have to do a little bit of research, but I think my understanding is correct that this was conforming when it was built, and then later there was changes to GFA that made it legal non-conforming.
Right, that's what I want you to confirm for the board, that when this was built, it was legally non-conforming. And I think the change was that pool houses became part of GFA. So I just want a timeline that the house was built, let's say in year X, legally conforming in every way with respect to GFA. And then what happened was the law was passed including pool houses in GFA, making this legally non-conforming, at 4543. And then I understand what you're saying. It becomes 4799 because of the building department interpretation, like adding all of it. That's less bothersome, but I'd still like to make sure our facts are facts.
Yeah, I can tell you that it was reviewed by the building inspector when they made the application, and I believe they found that it was consistent with its approvals.
Right, and so I just want you to provide us with a timeline. When was it built? When was the pool house included in GFA, so that I feel comfortable that that's when it became legally non-conforming? What do you think about what's the difference if they had a detached garage? Is that bothersome to you? Because it seems like they have the right to.
No, it's not bothersome to me at all. That's kind of what the code is steering them into.
Right.
See, I usually look at what is it about this property that the authors of the zoning code couldn't have foreseen or couldn't have thought about, and this property is an outlier to that and warrants relief.
Sure, I think the answer to that is basically that it's an R20 zone. The property is much bigger than what is normally considered a property in the R20 zone. They're usually much smaller properties, so a 520 square feet accessory structure would make sense for a 10,000 square foot property, let's say. This is a 26,630 square foot property. It's much more consistent with a larger zoning where 800 square feet accessory structures are permitted as of right. So that, I think, is the real, the kind of what sets us apart, and wouldn't set a precedence here or anything like that, because presumably most other properties in R20 are going to be a conforming size.
So you're saying that were the property smaller and it can fit the guidelines for the zone, you wouldn't be asking for a garage?
Correct. Or I think if there's, I know this is a lot of weird kind of things with the zoning here, but I think what we're saying is that if the property was in a zone that was consistent with its size, we wouldn't need a variance.
Yeah.
You would
Right.
still need a GFA variance. So I'm less concerned with your 766 square foot garage, where 520 is permitted in the zone. I'm more concerned with you have a legally non-conforming GFA, and you're increasing that GFA. So I'm more concerned about that, and that's regardless of what zoning district you're in. That's your property size. And I'm more concerned about that. And the idea of a detached garage, which seems like you could have as of right, it's just what I'm thinking through. Because you could put in a detached garage as of right, 520 square feet, correct?
Yeah.
Leave everything, you haven't increased your GFA, you have legally non-conforming GFA, you're not increasing your GFA at all based upon your property size, and that's, I mean, let me just think about that. That's my only concern, otherwise it seems.
Because to have
Wonderful.
something detached along the property line here, I guess the south property line, let's see the north arrow, could create a real nice little courtyard thing, because it is a large property. If it was, compliant to the zone, maybe it would feel crowded, but it's still it's the same amount of footing and slab. You don't have to peel anything away, no demo from the pool house. It may be an apples to apples cost comparison.
I think it would be helpful if you put together a site plan showing a detached garage.
Okay.
I mean, it's a feasible alternative. It's, it would be helpful.
Okay, we can do that.
Do you have any comments?
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
Public
Yeah.
comment?
Yeah. Is there anybody here that would like to, from the public who would like to comment on this application? No, why don't we, then I'll motion to adjourn for all purposes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry if it's difficult to kind of explain the zoning on this, and I'm sorry
No,
if I
it's
confused
confusing.
anybody.
It's definitely confusing, and it changes,
Yeah.
over time, and
Yeah, good presentation.
we're sympathetic. So let's motion to adjourn case number 3169, 153 Bishop's Lane, Adrian and Thomas Anderman. Can I have a second?
To which date is that?
We're going to adjourn to the next. Is that okay? Would you be able to?
When is the next hearing?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
It's April 27th, or then May 11th.
25th.
April
Oh.
25th.
Okay, I just have to check my calendar to make sure I can, I certainly can have the drawings done by then, but I just have to check my calendar to make sure I can make the meeting.
Okay, just let us know if you can. We'll adjourn it to April 25th. Can I have a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mark, do you need me to stay for the remaining cases? No wetlands that I saw.
We're set. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very
Good night,
helpful.
Chick.
Thanks, Chick.
We'll see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're moving on to case number 3170, 40 John Street. Patricia Grundebaum.
Okay.
Lisa Zaloga. I'm the architect for Patricia Grunbaum at 40 John Street. Do you want me to go through the whole thing again? We renoticed, we reposted. Everything that I said at the last meeting stayed the same, but I can reiterate it if you'd like.
Let's just talk about the thing that changed, the parking, right?
Okay. So, as we talked about last time, the cottage, the pre-existing cottage that currently exists on the property, has always been there as a
Can we put
one-bedroom
your-
cottage.
Lisa, do you mind, can we have your drawings on camera?
Okay. I don't have, can he zoom in on them?
Yeah, I think so.
You're just
Shade.
gonna put it facing the board.
Yep.
There we go.
There you go. So this is the lot on John Street. It's an L-shaped lot. This dotted line here is the location of the pre-existing cottage that has been there for decades. The house, the number of bedrooms has not changed for the house. The cottage, I'm asking you to allow me to take it from a pre-existing non-conforming location with like approximately 4-foot side yard setback and rebuild it in a conforming location. So I have not changed the density on the property at all. However, there's a relatively new, in the scheme of this property, law that calculates how parking is calculated. So the pre-existing driveway that has been here again for decades does not conform to the current parking calculations. So I'm asking you for a variance to have an expanded driveway that will allow for 4 cars parked that meet the parking law, which says that you can't have to move more than 1 car to get out. So I'm widening the driveway to get 2 cars parked side by side, but I can't fit the 5 that would be required under the current parking law code, even though I haven't changed any density. Generally, if I were to say to you I was doing an interior renovation or something, I wouldn't have to discuss parking. But in the interest of trying to make sure that we had all of our variances covered, we requested the variance.
How far is the house from the John Street?
The existing porch is 14.5 feet from John Street. Can't put it there.
Just wanted it on the record. I'll put it there. Do you have any comments? I mean, I'm fine with this. It's wonderful.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can motion to close for decision, and we might even have a decision available.
We talked about potentially having a decision available.
I circulated a draft of language that may be appropriate.
Okay, so I can motion to accept the decision written by legal counsel in the case of Patricia, if I mispronounce it, correct me, Grunbaum, 40 John Street, case number 3170. Can I have a second?
Ryan, do we have to do public comment on this?
Did I miss that?
Still open, so yes.
Okay, is there anybody from the public who wishes to comment on 40 John Street, case number 3170? Okay, so a motion to accept the decision is written by legal counsel in case number 3170, 40 John Street. Can I have a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a copy of that tomorrow or tonight?
Brian, if you're able to share it with me, I can print it for signature.
Sending it over now. And Lisa, I just need you to change one thing.
We're going to go to case number 3172, Gabriella M. Left Living Trust et al., 60 Breeze Lane.
For the applicant, David Gilmartin Jr., Greenberg Troy, 2317 Montauk Highway, Bridgehampton, New York. I did hand forward the posting affidavit to council. I'd like the record to reflect that.
Received.
With respect to our application, our clients purchased this property in 2022 and have looked at the property over the last year, looking at efforts to increase the outdoor living space. The current house is modest in size, and they're trying to maximize some outdoor space to better utilize it. They've decided to add a pool and an artist studio, which is reflected on the survey that's in front of you. the biggest challenge facing this application is the fact that it has 2 front yards located on Edward Lane and Breeze Lane. The functional front yard of this property is on Breeze Lane where the front door is located. We do have on the property an as of right location where we could put the pool. So we are not achieving something that we could not otherwise achieve on the property as of right. But we think we have a better plan, and that better plan helps us utilize both the property better and separates us further from our neighbors' usable backyards. And I do have an area where I can demonstrate that. So in applying the balancing test, we can, in our proposal, have a pool and then have an area directly behind the house where we plan to put a deck and have that usable area in the backyard. It also creates separation from our proposed artist studio, which is as of right in its current location. And it also moves us away from our immediate neighbors. This is the property right here. We are shifting the pool this way. Here's the usable backyard to our neighbor to the east, and the usable backyard to our neighbor to the north. As we shift it closer, we hit Breeze Lane. With the 30 feet that we have between the pool and our property line, then Breeze Lane is 50 feet, so there's 80 feet to the neighbor's property line. The pool is located right in there, the proposed pool. And you can see there's a pool here on the neighbor directly across the street to the south, and then a pool on the other property that could be affected. We chose 30 feet off because that's where the current house is, so it's consistent with the house. The second part of the test, that's our benefit. The second part of the test that you have to consider is a detriment. And I'd say there's none here. Again, we're moving away from the neighbors. Separation between the pool and the neighbor is to the south is 80 feet. Both neighbors to the south have a pool. Edward Street is a lightly traveled road. There are, including our driveway, and we're on the corner, 3 other driveways on the property. It does loop around, but very light traffic, and obviously the pool is at grade, and we plan to hedge around the entire property to screen it.
Mr. Chairman, I think I may have misunderstood you. Did you say there were 3 driveways on the property or on the?
No, it's
Okay.
just one driveway. There are 3 driveways off of Edward Lane.
Oh, okay.
So 3
okay.
other houses that on that part of Edward Lane is a horseshoe.
Okay.
Again, pool's at grade. There's a plan to hedge the entire property. If we look at the 5-part test, the first thing I think you notice is there's a ton of pools in this area. It seems like almost every property has a pool. I think we could call it ubiquitous. The pool, which is a common accessory structure on properties within the village. The area also has a lot of non-conforming lots. I've highlighted the subject lot, and as you can see, as you look in the area, it's at least as big, if not bigger, of many of the lots surrounding it. It's an R20 area with generally smaller lots. The next prong of the test you have to consider is, are we able to achieve our benefit in any other way without a variance? And here I'd say no, that area that we'd like to retain as living space between the pool and the artist studio, we can't achieve without without the request for a variance. One of the things that we did do during this process, we did look at turning the pool in a, I guess that's an east-west orientation as opposed to the north-south orientation, and it took it too close to the house. We hoped to put a deck off the back of the house, and we had some drawings done by an architect, and it really interfered with that deck and the usable space in the back. The next consideration that you have is whether the variance is substantial. As we all know, substantiality is reviewed by a board in the totality of the circumstances, not necessarily numerically. Numerically, it's a 40% variance. But if you look at the totality of the circumstances, the benefit accruing to the property owners, you know, as opposed to the detriment, which I would argue there are none, when you consider that, all of that in totality, the variance isn't substantial. You know, it's one of those unusual cases that you come across every once in a while where the greater the variance, the better it is for the neighbors. And that's what we tried to do here, move it from the neighbors. I believe that neighbors might be here, but I'm not sure. And again, the pool will be fully screened from view. Your next consideration is an adverse impact on the environment. This is a type 2 action under SECRA, which the DEC has categorically stated will not have an adverse environmental impact. It's not going to increase traffic or, you know, create any of the other issues that larger development does. And the final prong for you to consider is whether it's a self-created hardship. Property is undersized for zoning. It has 2 front yards, and it is, as I've said, affected by the development pattern of the neighbors. So we've tried to be sensitive to that, tried to move it closer to Edward Lane where we don't think it'll have any impact. It's consistent with the front of the house. It's actually our garage that faces Edward Lane. And we respectfully request to grant the variance.
Do you have any questions?
No, I don't think so.
What's the distance from the proposed artist studio to the pool?
17 feet, 16 feet probably.
Is that what it is, 17 feet?
No, maybe less.
I
It's like
think it
30.
might be more.
Yeah, 30 feet from the pool to the street, right? So scale that, 20 something.
I don't know. We sent this to East End. Does this make me a nerd that I travel with this? 20.
Question is, really, they could just slide this a little up. This is, they need to be 50.
Well, that's not the scale. You know what I do have?
They could just slide it up. I mean, this is, maybe they don't get an artist studio. That's another question that's up to you.
David, while you're looking at that, first of all, thanks for coming in with 5 points at the
You
forefront.
don't need to be 30
That's-
feet.
My father is a very good teacher.
It's a nice change of pace.
I'm always concerned about
Yeah.
So
precedent.
since it's an undersized lot for the zone,
Yeah.
don't you get setback relief for your structures and your accessory structures, and
Closer to
maybe
the
the
house.
artist studio could be
Yeah.
Not for accessory structures.
not for accessories, for primary
Yeah, it's
only.
not for
They
Okay.
said that they had a plan, a schematic to move the location of the whole perpendicular to the house, but it was too close. or something.
25 feet.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't know that you can flip it, but you could.
Yeah,
you
move
could
it.
Move that.
And I was remiss. My one of my clients, Jill Schwartz, is here. She's sitting over there.
You know, excuse me.
Well, I'm not
Yeah,
finished yet.
you're talking. I have a question to ask.
He's not
Wait, yeah, we'll be right with you.
Yeah.
Truly, and then you can come up, introduce yourself, it'll be great. Right now, we're just trying to get some board comments, but we'll be there shortly. Sorry, did I lose your thread, Luke?
No, not at all.
Did we
Go
get a
ahead.
distance there?
25 feet.
So you got 20, okay. Is there a plan to do something with the house?
No, not
Just
at
leave
this
the
time.
house as the ranch?
Correct. Yeah.
Do you have comments yet?
I'm thinking about it. It's 2 front yards, correct?
Correct. Edward agrees.
So Can you just, for my benefit, I see where the pool is, I see where the main house is, I see where the artist studio is, but I'm not clear about the size of the deck that precluded you from making a different plan. How big is that deck that is planned?
I think the deck is between 15 and 20 feet off the back. The other point that I'd like to make is that if we turn it, change the orientation, it basically cuts off the back of the property. Here, there's a little bit of flow at least to go back and forth.
Two front yards is always a complicated property that we have to consider. And they come in front of us today more than over and over again. And it's always a very difficult question for us.
Effectively, 2 front yards moves everything back into this area where it has the most impact, right? And that's why we have zoning boards, right? Because you get these unusual cases. I think corner lots, are a lot of the cases the most case of any type of case that I've done in my career, because it creates an automatic almost request for it on an improvement. And that's why you're here. That's why we have a balancing test. And I think we've satisfied that balancing test.
I'll look forward to what the neighbors have to say about it as well.
All right, does anybody from the public wish to be heard on this case?
Sorry, we need you to come
Just
to the
please
microphone.
Come forward and introduce yourself.
And use the microphone. It makes it so that people watching on television can hear you.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I have a question with the
We need your name.
pool equipment.
So we
Sir,
we need your name
There's
first.
no code. You what?
Your name. You have to state your name first.
Derek Brown.
Derek or Eric?
Yeah, I'm the neighbor.
Yeah.
On the,
So you're the neighbor to the
on the
east.
east side.
And you're asking about the location of the pool equipment?
Yes, I'm concerned about that because when especially at night, you won't hear that. You won't hear it. I know that, but I will.
What's the
You won't
setback
hear
for the
it, but
pool
I-
equipment?
My understanding is it's typically the setback for
But
pools.
it's very close. It's very close to all my bedrooms. It's a matter of fact, the pool is very close to my house. I have no objection to the pool, nor the location. I'm concerned about the equipment.
The pool equipment has to be located as far from your property line as the pool, so at least 20 feet.
But it's still a very short distance
Alex, what you just said
from my.
conflicts with what's on the survey, because on the survey it shows proposed pool equipment 10 feet.
I made a note of that as well, and it's something that we'll check with the building inspector. And if necessary, it can be adjusted on the plans before. It would have to be compliant before they would issue a permit.
So likely it will move further from your property line than it appears right now.
Which way
To the west, probably. It would be up to the designers to find the right compliant spot. And you'll have another
Because
opportunity to see
in the
it.
summertime, we don't have AC. We don't sleep with AC. The windows will be open. I cannot have, the pool equipment running all night and then we hear it. That's a health hazard. I can't have that. Why can't move it? Move it to a further away from my
If I could,
house.
I might be able to save some time. I just spoke to my client who said that we take the pool equipment and move it to the south side as far away from the neighbor's property as we can.
Jill, you mentioned it to my wife.
Mr. Brockman, You actually have to speak to us,
Yeah.
not to anyone there. You know, also generally pool equipment does shut off in the evening. The pumps usually go off.
No, they usually run during the night. The pumps.
Okay.
Well, it depends. It depends.
Mine happened to go off at dark, but
Yeah, it depends on the size of the pool and the pumps, of course.
No, no, we're just at the beginning stage of this anyway. We can always, if we're inclined to grant a variance for the pool, we can also include a condition that the pool equipment be located in a location that's as far away from your property as possible. But we're not there yet. But we hear your comment, we hear your concern. I share your concern.
I'm not here to make it tough on anybody, but it works both ways.
Mm-hmm.
And my neighbor, Jill here, we have the understanding.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to bring it up, you know, about the pool equipment.
Okay. No, right. We hear it.
thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you so
very
much.
much.
Thank you.
Does anybody else from the public wish to be heard?
Hi, good evening. Stu Lieblein, 49 Breeze Lane. First I've heard of it. I'm the neighbor just to the right across the street. She's on the corner of Breeze and Edward, and I'm right on Breeze directly across. You know, my experience in town is that the things that create most noise are pools. People in the pools, people around the pools. And right as it stands right now, my only objection is the entire, about 60% of the property has no landscaping. And the proposed landscaping, as I understand it, are only to help out the neighbor that just spoke to the east. I have no problem with the proposed pool being closer to the property line. If there is significant landscaping done throughout Edward Lane surrounding the property and also continuing on Breeze Lane, shielding the entire area as an eyesore and noise. What I mean about significant landscaping, just not any type of privet, but double stacked, you know, staggering privets or proper height and, you know, close together, evergreens such as arborvitaes. Other than that, I have no problem with it, but it certainly is an eyesore coming closer to the street and increases noise levels. So I would just ask, I have no problem with it. I'm building a new home right across the street that I'd like the board to consider, if they are going to grant it, to make it accompanied with proper landscaping plans, not just for around the pool, but around the entire property, height and density. That's the only thing I wanted to come here and put on record.
So Brian, that's a reasonable condition. If we were inclined to grant the variance here, we could grant it subject, or we could request a site plan with landscaping.
Yeah, landscape plan.
Heights.
Height and density is important on, on Breeze and on Edwards, both sides.
Height, density, and type.
Right, sorry. That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks for hearing me.
Just a couple of comments. The house that we bought has water intrusion in the basement, so it's basically a construction site right now, digging out the foundation and fixing that. So while it doesn't look good now, it will in the future, and there'll be landscaping. I think the previous speaker also has a construction site going on, which isn't the most attractive thing to look at. So I would hope that he'd have some sympathy for us. With respect to the landscaping, that's acceptable. We did, although we weren't able to get it in late. You know, the professionals sometimes don't listen to the lawyers, right? So we deal with surveyors and architects and try to get everything done. So I did miss your deadline, but we do have a site plan that was prepared by Sean Leonard Architect, and it does indicate that we're going to put 6-foot skip laurels surrounding the property. I think that's an excellent choice for landscaping because it's clean all year round. But that is within the plan. When I did look at the plan, it looked like it was only along Edward, but I can have that changed so it indicates that it's around the entire property.
Any other questions at this point, or I'm inclined to just adjourn for all purposes and give us a chance to. Okay, so I'll motion to adjourn for all purposes. Case number 3172, 60 Breeze Lane. Can I have a second?
And that's to the next meeting?
Sure. Yeah, let's adjourn it to our next
Does that
meeting.
give you enough time to submit a landscape plan to address the 3 items that the neighbor identified?
That
Density.
would be due on the 16th at noon.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be able to get the site plan amended. It's the surveyor who presents the challenges. So I'll get the site plan done in that time. We will show the landscaping, and then we'll show moving the pool equipment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did we pet? So
No, you
What did
moved.
we do?
can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Okay, moving forward, we have case number 3173, 306 Hill Street. Do you need a break?
We're still at one. We're still at one.
Yes, no, but if anybody needs a break, I saw it the other day was breaking, and I thought that was nice. So if you need a break for any reason,
Oh, sorry. I didn't know you were right there.
I kind of feel like the 2 hour.
Are you gonna?
Yeah, you don't want them to be hugging. I generally walk out without the meeting.
Good evening. My name is Jackie Morley from Timmy Latham, Shea, Kelly, Dubin, Corderero, Riverhead. Here on behalf of Hill Street Cottage LLC, the property located at 306 Hill Street. The owners are proposing to install a spa / hot tub in their side yard. We just request relief from the setback requirements included in 116-9A 10C, where 20 feet is required for any swimming pool, which includes hot tubs per the code. This hot tub would be located at 13.9 feet from that side yard.
Can you put
side
your
property.
site
I'm sorry.
plan on
Yep.
camera?
Apologies.
Takes a sec.
Yeah. Just by way of brief background, the property was purchased last year, at the end of last year, with all the current improvements that you see there. The 1-story dwelling, the pool, there's a slate patio to the rear of the property, the rear of the dwelling, and a pool house. This is a small lot, and all the improvements have been located in a manner that conserves the space without being too close to the other neighboring properties. As you can see from the site plan here, proposed location for the hot tub would be right there, next to the slate patio. This is a door that comes out from the main part of the house onto the patio. Hot tub would be right there. I do have some photos that I would like to distribute as well, and I have an aerial. I don't have nice giant poster boards, but pass these around.
Is there a copy for the table as well so that the public can see it?
Okay, so I'll pass them up. Sure, and you'll describe what these are. So the applicant is submitting multiple copies, each package having 4 photos.
5 actually.
5?
5.
2, 3. First one only has 4.
Oh, I must have grabbed one. I'm sorry, that's why.
Okay, yeah, the rest of them. Okay, thank you. All right, so 5 photographs with Post-its at the bottom, presumably describing what each of them show. We can mark this as applicant's exhibit A, 1 through 5.
Okay. So just the first photo there just shows the rear of the dwelling. We're facing the northwest. And this is just showing from a larger view the proposed location. You can see the rear of the house and the edge of the patio there. The area right next to it would be where the hot tub would go. The next photo is a similar angle, or similar orientation, I should say, just a larger view of it. Then the next set of photos shows the eastern boundary, which is the side yard that we're talking about, and the trees there. The next photo as well shows kind of facing a more southerly direction, the trees and plantings that are existing there and vegetation. And I have one more photo, just more of the trees and the vegetation facing a more northeasterly direction. Nice to say that, as we had indicated in our application, this is a innocuous structure to include in this neighborhood. The neighboring properties are all similarly narrow and smaller. This is just generally in this area. These lots are a little more cookie cutter in that way. And a number of other properties have similar structures close to their lot lines as well. I also have not that great of a quality of an aerial, but I'll pass this as well.
All right, so we can mark this aerial photograph as applicant's Exhibit B.
Okay. So I have an arrow. Once you all, sorry, I'll have it in front of you. Arrow in red showing the location, proposed location. You can see that the neighboring property, 284 Hill Street, their pool is pretty far away from where we would be putting this. Similarly, the two properties to the south are also have a lot of space between there, and we even have this area, which you can see from the previous photo, is actually a lot of space, a lot of buffer space between this location close to the house, as close to the house as possible, and those neighboring properties. As well, you have the existing vegetation. And just to continue going through the standards briefly, there would be no, as far as we are aware, there'd be no detrimental effect on the environment. This is already a previously disturbed and cleared area in the property. Although we acknowledge that we are proposing to place it in a location that is within the setbacks, we would argue that the existing slate patio, if we were to try to incorporate this into that location, it would require removing the patio, and the hot tub can be placed on this material. Removing it and accruing additional costs and actually causing probably more disturbance to the property, to the neighbors in general anyway, with that removal of that patio there. Just also of note, we provided our the mailings and the postings accordingly, and I have not received any calls or correspondence related to those mailings from neighbors, but my clients did let me know that they had spoken to the neighbors at 284, which, as I indicated, is right next to them here, and they did not have any issue with the matter. And then additionally, I know that they spoke to 300 Hill Street, which is right in front of them. As you know, this is a flag lot, and they take access next to 300 Hill Street. They spoke to those neighbors did not have any issue with the application. And even just today, the neighbor at 310 Hill Street, which is over here, and you can't see it on my aerial, but this property's up here. They also approached the clients today and said that they would provide support if needed to the application as well. I think that is everything I have, unless there's any other questions at this time. And I'm available to speak to them.
I may have missed it,
okay.
So apologies. Is this one of those purchased hot tubs, or is it going to be constructed?
It's a purchase hot. It'll go on a like a slab, but it's just purchased and installed. It's nothing. Like
and so, excuse me. Why can't it go on the slate patio?
I believe it would be not if we're required digging out the bottom, I guess, because of the material that the patio is made out of. That's my understanding of it. And I also know that from I was just there today. I guess where this door is, if it was placed here, it'd be in the way of the door, and it's I guess a safety concern to have it go. So you would just go out this way and step down to it, or out to it, I should say.
So those are steps down from the slate patio to the pool patio.
Right.
I see a lot of potential conforming locations for it, though. Why not on the pool patio, just, I guess, southeast of the pool, where there's that little arc bump in?
I would have to discuss it with the clients to see, and I am not sure what I guess I should have looked more closely at the art, say I was there, but there's like, existing, I believe they have like a planter here, so I can look into that if you'd like.
Is the rear yard setback, Alex, for spas at 20 feet?
Yes, that's how the denial is written. And it's from any side or rear lot line.
Do you have any comments?
I would like to know, as a follow-up to Luke's comment, just about whether or not, I'd like to know for sure that other locations had been fully considered, because I think there are options on the property, and our mandate is to do the least.
Of course.
That's asked, that we can. So it just seems to me that that is a question that we would want to have answered in order to be able to begin to really deliberate, frankly.
Okay.
Do you have any comments?
No, I mean, I completely agree, because it seems like there's a lot of possible alternate locations without having to grant a variance for this, to put it in ground in the patio or even inside the existing pool.
So, and that's it's something to talk to the owner and perhaps an architect about, and we'd also like to see the actual hot tub, what it looks like.
Oh.
What's the?
Okay.
Do we have that?
I believe I submitted it with. Maybe I did not. I can provide that, because it's provided with the initial building permit, of course. So
Okay, yeah, we'd
I'll
love to see
provide
that.
with
I mean,
that.
for right now, we'll adjourn for all purposes, and you hear our concerns about an alternate feasible location, and also just to visualize, what the hot tub looks like.
Absolutely. So your one request is, could it be put in the oval pool too, or would you want it to be around, or like somewhere around the pool? Is that
It's up to you. We don't
okay.
want to design it for you.
Right.
It's just that I think what you're hearing from the board members is that there seems like some alternate feasible locations that don't require a variance.
Okay, understood.
The documents you provided to the board, do you have a copy of those for the file?
Yes.
Okay, great.
I can give you this copy right here.
Thanks. I'm going to ask you to email these to the building department tomorrow as well.
So for right now, I will motion to adjourn for all purposes, case number 3173-306 Hill Street. Can I have a second?
And that's to the next meeting?
And all in favor? Yes, to the next meeting, if that's okay.
27th. Oh,
Yes, 25th.
That's the
sorry.
25th.
Okay, yes.
25th, I keep saying the 27th. I'm causing that confusion.
Okay, thank you very much.
I had a
Thank
second and
you.
we voted yes?
Yes.
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 Aye.
Thank you. So we're moving on to case number 3174, 79 Edward Lane, Victor Finalborgo. Thank you for your patience.
You'll be glad to hear I only have one front yard.
Yes.
No pool. Let's see.
So if you face it towards us, that's
There
right.
you go. Is that it?
Yep.
Good. That's the survey. think that's a picture of the actual door. So what I was asking for is I'd like to put a little,
Just a little further, there you go.
yeah, I'd like to put a 4-foot roof out over my front door, 4 foot and 8 feet.
Just a
So-
roof
Yeah,
Just-
well, two pillars.
and the pillars.
Yeah, not closed. I have some side views, but yeah, it's just open. Just
Could you show the side views? Just so we have it.
can you see that? Oh, let's see.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right here.
Yeah.
Could you turn it around, Rick?
Yep.
There you go. Now we can see it.
There you go. Okay.
And this is your front door.
Front door.
Okay.
So originally, I was told there was a 30-foot setback.
Mhm.
So when I looked at the survey, I had 34. So I said to the architect, just go out 4 feet so I don't have to get a variance.
Right.
And then it turned out that you have to be 40 feet from that. So that's where I ran into this problem.
Got it.
Is it a non-conforming front yard setback?
Let me check the survey here.
It was one of every house on that street, most of them have been redone. They're all spec houses built in the 70s.
The 40-foot front yard setback is shown on the survey. It goes through the front of the house. The existing front of the house is at 34.7, and the proposed portico they're proposing is at 30.7.
Is it a 40-foot setback
The
now
four-
required?
40-foot front yard setback.
Mhm.
Yep, and I believe that's how it's reflected on the denial as well.
Only thing I can think of is the other neighbors look like they're 40 feet back. And the neighbor next door has the same exact ranch. And her front is further back, so when I couldn't figure out why my lot was done that way, but maybe that's why they recessed the front door rather than put a porch on there. That's all I could think of. But the problem I run into is when I open the storm door, people have to get off the porch. Well, it's okay. Most people use the back door anyway, but I just thought, And the
Sure.
second thing, I thought it might dress it up the front of the house. I've sent some pictures, I don't know if you got them.
Yeah.
Of the house, and I'd get rid of those 2 big shrubs in the front. I mean, I could make it smaller if it's.
No, it's fine. Really, I don't have any problem with this.
No.
Happy with it.
I mean, it's benefit to you compared to a detriment to the neighborhood. It's great. It's wonderful. We can close it for decision. And
I don't know when it's here, just make sure.
does anybody from the public wish to be heard on in this case? No. Okay, we'll close it for decision, and I think we have the support of the board.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Oh,
So it was a long wait, but a quick answer.
that's right. Good. All right. I appreciate it.
Well, I don't know if we voted, so I'll
Did we
motion
No,
to,
but
I'll motion to close for decision. I need a second on 79
Second.
Edwards Lane. Second, all in favor,
Aye.
I
and we'll have your decisions shortly.
okay.
So I can motion to close the public hearing, or should we
Oh,
look
second,
at?
the
Yes.
meeting.
Wait, before we do, let's do the let's accept.
Yeah, under the work session discussion,
You're free.
there's a so there's a note here. We have 2 meetings that are already scheduled, which is April 25th and May 14th, and that's a Tuesday. So there's a typo there. And then under approved meeting schedule, there's 6 dates shown that follow the board's prior schedule, which is the first Tuesday. I'm sorry, the second Tuesday and the 4th Thursday. So that's Tuesday, June 11th, Thursday, June 27th, Tuesday, July 9th, Thursday, July 25th, Tuesday, August 13th, and Thursday, August 22nd. So if the board could take a look at those and let us know if those are acceptable, make sure that we'll have a quorum on those days in light of the attendance.
Labor.
September 4th.
Second. The second.
It's the second.
The second. See, I
Okay.
didn't know.
So what was the last date in August, Alex?
August 22nd, which
Okay.
is a Thursday. That's
people
the
book
one.
on.
2, 3.
Those are fine with me.
I'm fine with that. Are they okay with you, Joyce?
Yes, as I can tell right now, unless I'm pulled away to golf tournaments.
Yeah, you're very supportive.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't have any choice.
Does it work for you, Luke?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, it's great. Yeah, let's publish that and let everybody know we'll be meeting on a more regular basis throughout the summer.
Okay, so we'll publish those, and if any board members have any conflicts, feel free to let the chair and myself know, and just to make sure if we don't have quorum, we could always make adjustments as needed.
Okay, so a motion to close the public hearing.
I second.
A second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.